Hi, everybody. I'm Cheryl Crisp for Movieguide's Backstage Pass, and this is Coffee and Conversation with our sweet friend, Natalie Grant.
Hi.
Hey, Natalie.
Good to see you again.
Thank you so much for joining us. I have so much I want to talk to you about today. But let's start at the beginning. What was Natalie Grant like as a little girl? Have you always had a heart for music?
So I've always loved music. I grew up in a musical family. I'm the youngest of 5 kids. And so none of my siblings are, professional musicians, but all of them served in their local church, right? And even my brother, who's a medical doctor now, but he was my musical hero and he played the piano and sang, and he was 5.5 years older than me. And so he taught me so much about music. So I grew up singing in the church. I grew up loving music. I grew up singing in my hairbrush and in my mirror. I never thought I would do it professionally. Like that wasn't like, this was when I was a little girl, it was before American Idol or The Voice or anything like that. So, being from Seattle, I didn't really go, oh, I'm going to move to Nashville and become a singer. I just loved to sing.
Natalie, you have been through so much in your life, and you are always so open and honest with your fans. And I think that's why people love you so much. You've talked about going through anxiety and depression and miscarriage and trying to get pregnant, and then the joy of having your twins and then your other daughter. Natalie, what keeps you so strong?
Goodness, I think, um, I'm not always strong. I think that's the first, I'm not always strong. Like sometimes I feel very, very, very weak, but I do have a firm understanding of where my strength comes from, and it's not from me. And, there's a Bible verse that says, the joy of the Lord is our strength. And I think sometimes that can be a really easy cliche, right? It's a cliche to put on a coffee mug or on a bumper sticker or on a t-shirt. The joy of the Lord is my strength. But when we can get past the cliche of it and understand the truth of it, like, oh, I might not feel joy in my circumstance. I might not even feel anything good, but I came to a real understanding that God is not dependent on my feelings, that, I feel what I feel, but God is who God is, regardless of how I feel in the moment. And there are times that I feel alone, or times that I feel like I can say all this stuff, but God, where are you? Like, where are you? You feel very, very far away, somewhere up in the sky that is untouchable and unseeable, right? But the joy of the Lord, when I put my joy in who He is and what He's done for me, and when I look back at His faithfulness, and when I'm feeling overwhelmed or alone, but I fix my mind, like my mind is stayed on who He is, then the joy of the Lord really is my strength. It's more than a cliche, it's a reality, right?
God's truth over the world's lies.
Yes, yes, yes.
You went through thyroid cancer a few years ago, and you thought you will never sing again. What was
Mm.
going through your mind when you went through that?
Oh goodness. You know, I, I remember when they first said, "Hey, you have cancer," is scary enough, but I did know that papillary thyroid cancer is, you never want cancer, but if you're gonna get cancer, you might want to choose papillary thyroid. Like they're gonna get it out. You're gonna be okay. You don't have to have chemo. There was so many. I feel so blessed at the type of cancer I have. That sounds funny, but it could have been so much worse. It was where the tumor was. They were like, we're going to get the cancer out, but the tumor is laying on your vocal nerve. And so when we cut it out, it's probably going to paralyze your vocal cord. That was the part that was like, wait, what? Like, I couldn't even digest it at first. And then, if I'm honest, I've spent so many years of my life like saying, singing is not who I am. It's just what I do. It's not my identity. It's just what I get to do, until they say you may never sing again. And I was like, I'm lying. It's totally who I am. Like I had a complete identity crisis of like, wait, well, who am I without that? Like, who am I without singing? And it really was an opportunity for me to have that identity crisis and come back to, I really am daughter of the King. I am wife of Bernie. I am mother of Gracie, Bella, and Sadie. And if all of the singing goes away, I am still more blessed than I can even fathom. And that was not an overnight process. It was definitely a process of coming to that realization that even if I don't get the outcome I want, my outcome does not determine his goodness, that he is still good and faithful to me and kind to me, even if my outcome isn't good. And obviously, the end of that story is that by his mercy and grace, my voice actually came back stronger than it was before. But I had a different resolve this time, right? I had a resolve of, okay, it came back stronger, not just so I can go about business as usual, but so that I can use it with a different fervor and a different passion than ever before, to just use it to tell people about how good God is and who Jesus is, as long as there's air in my lungs. And I feel like I have more of a resolve of that than I've ever had before.
It's amazing. You have three beautiful daughters, and they all sing. They're just so adorable, and they all have a heart for the Lord. And how you've been such a great parent, you and Bernie. How do
Thank
you, can you give a tip to parents on how to sow seeds and cultivate a love of Jesus in the hearts of our children?
I have to be honest with you. Thank you for those kind words. Sometimes Bernie and I think, because we've got a public life and we have a social platform, right? It's so easy for us to get too much credit, right? We hear, thank you for what you said, but sometimes we're like, we're not perfect parents. We're far from it. But there's a few things a few decisions that we've made along the way. Number one is church. Church is a non-negotiable in our family. And I'm a product of the local church. Bernie is a pastor's kid. He's a product of the local church. And I think that a lot of times we can have different priorities, right? Like if your child's really athletic, then you've got all these like, well, we can't be involved in youth because we have practice on Wednesdays, or we have games on the weekend, or we have all of these things that are so important. But I have to tell you that there is nothing more important than prioritizing your child's relationship with the Lord. And as the youngest of five kids, right, I have watched so many of my siblings make incredible decisions. And then I've also learned a lot from decisions that they now say, oh, we wish we would have done that differently. And one of them was prioritizing youth and church over anything else. And so I can say that to parents. It may seem unrealistic in the moment, but prioritize the house of God. Whatever type of church you worship in, prioritize that for your kids. And if the church you go to does not have a great youth program, I learned from my parents, you as a parent can find a great podcast. You can read the word. You can get a devotional. Right now, choose a great church based on the needs of your family. Like pick a place that has a great youth leadership and a great youth pastor and a great program for your kids to be involved in. Even if it's not necessarily your cup of tea right now, get over it. You can find that cup of tea when your kids are grown and gone, but prioritize your family's needs over your own. That's my number one piece of advice. My second piece of advice would be careful what you let your kids see. Obviously, we live in a modern day and age, but our youngest child still doesn't have any social media. Our twins didn't even get Instagram until they were 15. It's still on private mode. They don't have Snapchat. They don't have put restrictions on the phone. It may feel archaic. Your kids will be mad at you. They will thank you. They will thank you. They will thank you one day for protecting their heart and for protecting their mind. So those are the two number one things I could tell you.
Absolutely. As parents, one of our most important, if the most important job is trying to get our kids to heaven. So,
Yeah, right.
how about a tip for young couples looking for a future spouse? Quick tip.
Ooh. So I would say number one, become best friends. I married my best friend, and I did plenty of dating before Bernie. I was actually engaged before Bernie. And thank God I had the courage to break it off on the right side of the aisle, because it just wasn't the right person for me. I prioritized, like, he was good looking and he was charming and all of these things but in the end, I knew we would be unequally yoked, right? And so make sure you have somebody that loves Jesus more than they love you, and make sure you marry your best friend, because a best friend will carry you when all of those other things start to fade. A best friend will carry you through. It will carry you through.
Speaking of best friends, you and Bernie have been married 24 years now, and you're going out on tour. You have a brand new album of favorites from the oldies, I guess you could say. And tell us about your new album, Seasons, and what was the inspiration?
You know what? I've been a fan of Christian and gospel music my whole life. I always say it's Jesus and Jesus music that has carried me through my life. And it's the music I grew up on. It's the music when I think back to my childhood, to what my mom was singing in the kitchen when she was cooking, to what we were singing along to on family trips. It was Jesus music. And during 2020, the lockdown of 2020, Bernie and I, you can actually see the piano right behind me. Bernie and I, in our living room, started doing a song a day keeps the crazies away. And we would post these songs.
That was awesome.
We would post these songs on Instagram and Facebook. And it was just our way of going, well, how do we keep from losing our own minds while we're locked up in our house? And then we started hearing from so many other people that ministered to. And honestly, I never could have imagined that. Last count was 76 million people watched those videos. And we were like, wait, what? We had no clue that it would end up ministering to so many people. But what happened for us is I would sing some of my own songs, but mostly I would sing these other songs that carried me, like To God Be the Glory, or His Eyes on the Sparrow, or Great Is Thy Faithfulness. We would start singing these other great songs that were carrying our hearts through the lockdown. And it really was the inspiration for, like, wait a second, I want to do a record from all these songs from different seasons of my life. And I'm going to start asking some of my heroes to sing with me. And they just kept saying yes. So I'm like singing with Dolly Parton and CeCe Winans and Mary Mary. And I'm like, this is the record of my dreams, basically, that I've gotten to do. And it was so fun to make it. And I really believe it's going to strike a chord in the hearts of so many people that it's going to go, I remember this song. I remember my grandmother singing this song, or I remember this song from when I was a kid. Or it's been really fun just already to hear from so many people who are so excited about the record.
I've had a preview of it, and it's amazing. I love it so much. It's really incredible.
You.
For my last question, you recently sang at the national presidential debate and the national championship. As Christians, why is it important to share our love for our country and our faith with the world?
I think that it is important, not just even as a Christian, but just as an American. Yes, my faith informs my voting, even though I don't use my platform for political purposes, because I think it's so divisive. And I think there's truth, right? I stand for truth and I stand for Jesus. But I think as an American, in a time where we're watching public faith in our democracy just at an all-time low, I feel like, and even a whole new generation that just doesn't even think about love of country. They don't even think about, like, that was for my parents or my grandparents or whatever. And you're like, no, there are actually men and women who gave their lives so that you could even enjoy the freedom to have that attitude, that you could even enjoy the freedom to even say that. But don't be so nonchalant about living in a place where you have the freedom to love Jesus. You have the freedom to worship how you want to worship. You have the freedom to enjoy so much. I feel like our young generation actually doesn't have an understanding and a respect for that. So any chance I get to just sing a song that I love for a country I love is an incredible, incredible privilege.
Natalie, thank you so much for sharing your light with the world.
My privilege. Thank you for having me. It was so good to see you again.
To watch more videos like this, go to movieguide.org.